In the vibrant city of Portland, Oregon, where rain often painted the sidewalk silver and the smell of fresh coffee seemed to drift endlessly from corner cafes, lived Emily Parker, a 21-year-old literature student with dreams far bigger than her small apartment and her part-time job at the local bookstore. Emily had always been the kind of person who carried a journal everywhere, scribbling down stories, half-finished poems, and fleeting thoughts between classes. Her life was a constant balancing act between school deadlines, long shifts, and late nights filled with the quiet scratching of her pen. Yet through it all, she carried within her a quiet hope that one day her words might mean something to the world. Her boyfriend Ryan Miller, a 22-year-old architecture student, had been by her side since sophomore year. And though their lives were busy and messy, their love was stitched together by small acts of kindness and resilience. They had met in the university library when Emily accidentally spilled coffee across her notes and Ryan, sitting nearby, had wordlessly handed over his sketchpad to save her from panic. That simple gesture became the spark for hours of conversation, shared laughter, and eventually a bond that deepened into love. Yet like all young couples finding their way, their relationship was far from perfect. They sometimes argued about missed texts, cancelled plans, or the exhaustion that came with chasing big dreams on small amounts of sleep. But beneath all of it was a sense of loyalty, patience, and an unspoken vow to keep trying again, no matter how many times they faltered. During Ryan's senior year, the pressure of his final design project began to weigh heavily on their time together. He spent countless nights hunched over his drafting table, surrounded by crumpled papers, rulers, and pencils worn down to stubs. Emily would sometimes sit silently in the corner of his apartment, watching him, wondering if she still fit into his world. One rainy evening, when the sound of thunder filled the sky, Emily finally whispered, "Ryan, do you think we're growing apart?" He looked up from his sketches, his eyes tired but sincere, and set down his pencil. "No, Em. I just feel like I can't get this right. No matter how many times I try, something feels wrong." She knew he was speaking not only of his project but of life itself, of the crushing weight of expectations and the fear of failure. Emily took his hand, warm and calloused from hours of work, and held it tightly. "You don't have to get it perfect the first time," she said softly. "What matters is that you keep trying." Her words eased something inside him, and for the first time in days, he smiled faintly. That night, she realized that love wasn't tested by grand declarations but by the quiet persistence to stand by each other when everything felt uncertain. The following weekend, Ryan surprised her with a walk through Forest Park, Portland's emerald sanctuary where trails wound through towering pines and the world felt hushed. The rain had cleared, leaving the air crisp and the ground fragrant with wet earth. Ryan carried 2 steaming mugs of coffee, handing her a caramel latte, her favorite. As they walked, he said, "Maybe it's okay to not get everything right the first time. Maybe what matters is that we keep showing up, like you always do for me." Emily smiled, her heart warming. Exactly. Life isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. From that day forward, they began to rebuild their rhythm. Ryan started showing Emily his designs, asking for her thoughts, while she began reading aloud her short stories to him. They discovered their worlds weren't so different after all. His blueprints and her words both required creativity, patience, and the bravery to face failure without quitting. Some nights his sketches looked clumsy, lines crossing at odd angles, while her stories sometimes felt empty or incomplete. Yet every time one of them wanted to give up, the other whispered, "Try again. You've got this." Slowly, doubt gave way to determination. At the end of the semester, Ryan stood before a panel of professors and classmates to present his final project. A design for a community library filled with natural light and green terraces meant to welcome every visitor. Emily sat in the audience, her heart racing with pride as she watched him speak with a quiet confidence she had seen growing inside him for months. The professors gave feedback, some harsh, some kind, but Ryan stood tall, no longer crushed by the thought of imperfection. When the presentation ended, Emily met him outside, her journal clutched to her chest, her eyes sparkling. "You know," she said, "the way you kept pushing through inspired me. I submitted one of my short stories to the campus magazine." Ryan's mouth fell open in surprise. "Emily, that's incredible." She smiled, barely able to contain her joy. They accepted it. That evening, instead of celebrating with grandeur, they ordered pizza, clinked soda cans together, and laughed until their sides ached. Ryan raised a slice like a toast. "Here's to not giving up, even when it feels impossible." Emily grinned, tapping her soda against his. "Here's to trying again." Years later, their lives looked different but the same in all the ways that mattered. Emily had published her first collection of short stories, her name embossed proudly on the cover, while Ryan had opened a small architecture firm in Seattle, Washington, designing community spaces that reflected the values he held dear. At Emily's first book signing, as she sat at a table stacked with copies of her work, she looked out into the crowd and spotted Ryan standing at the back, his familiar smile beaming with pride. In that moment, she realized their love had never been about flawless beginnings or effortless success. It had been about patience, persistence, and the courage to start again after every stumble. She knew then, as she would always know, that true love wasn't about getting it perfect the first time. It was about having someone who believed in you enough to keep trying again, side by side, through every challenge and every dream.